Okay, y'all, so what we're going to do in this recording is look at the mid-sagittal model here, but focusing really on the digestive terms, as the previous recording has a little mix. So let's go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, we're going to look at this structure located here, and this represents the lips or labia. You can use either term, lips or labia, to represent the structure, and this is an L there. Now, what you'll notice here about the mouth is that this mouth actually has two different spaces. We have the main space, which is this area located here, and again, I'm not pointing at the structure, I'm pointing at the overall space where that structure would be. This is what we would call the oral cavity. So let me go ahead and just circle that all in blue. So the overall space, which when we think of our mouth, we probably think of the oral cavity. However, the second space that we see is this space right here. Easy way to think about it is if you were to take your tongue and run it along the front of your teeth, that space right here between the lips, between the lips and the front of the teeth, the space, and that's the key, y'all, it's the space here. We call that space the vestibule. So let me just put it here, the space is the vestibule. So we have two spaces or areas that make up our mouth. The vestibule, located here from the lips to the front of teeth, and then the general space here, which is the oral cavity. Now, let's go ahead and pick up some structures we've seen before. So we have this white bone structure here. This is called the hard palate. Then as we come back, let me switch colors to, say, yellow. Now, let me make a very clear note here. Where we have the red and yellow here, that is the soft palate, okay? And that is a big idea, the idea of red and yellow. So look closely, y'all. You see here where we have the red and the strip of yellow. And if you keep going, red, yellow, and then it just turns to yellow, okay? I know a little difficult to see, but that is important because when it switched to just, hold on, let me go back. I didn't want to do that. When it switches to just yellow here, that is now called the uvula. Okay, so U-V-U-L-A, that is the uvula. Okay, so just the area in which it's all yellow. And again, I know this picture, it's a little dark, this picture, but we're looking for this point right here where it's all yellow. Okay, let's go back to our oral cavity and hit some structures. So this large red muscular structure is the tongue. I probably mentioned this in lab. I don't know why, but tongue is probably the most commonly misspelled word. So please make sure as you study it, you study the spelling. We have this little bone located here. This is the hyoid. That's H-Y-O-I-D, so the hyoid bone here. Okay, now we do ask you to also know our tonsils. There are three sets of tonsils: pharyngeal tonsils, also known as the adenoids, the palatine tonsils, and then the lingual tonsils. Now, the first one, and you can use either term here, pharyngeal or adenoids, is that orange mass that I just circled. So, pharyngeal, I like using pharyngeal. And the reason being is I think pharyngeal tonsils are at the top of the pharynx, and that's how I remember. But if you want to use adenoids, I'll put that in parentheses if I don't run out of room. So the adenoids there. Now, the palatine tonsils. This gets a little tight in here. So remember what we said. We have hard, down here, hard palate, soft palate, red and yellow, just yellow, uvula. But if you come down, you will see a little orange mass. Hopefully you can make out that little letter K there. But the little orange mass under the uvula, or at least in this picture under the uvula here, this is what we call the palatine tonsils. And I know, I see it now, that the black and black is going together, but palatine and then tonsils. The word tonsils up here if you're unsure how to spell it. All right, and then our last set of tonsils are called the lingual tonsils. They are located under the tongue. So we have our tongue here. So you see this little triangular structure located there. That represents the lingual tonsil. Okay, now one other structure to be aware of that we've actually seen in the respiratory tract is this blue strip located there, and that blue strip, of course, is our epiglottis. Remember, the epiglottis is a small strip that closes, and I should say a strip of cartilage, and to be even more specific, a strip of elastic cartilage that when we swallow, so if you could imagine, let me do a highlighter here. If you could imagine this blue strip, when we swallow, swings down here, okay? So you see how it would shut off the larynx. So this whole general area here is our larynx, but it would shut the larynx off to force food, beverage down into this lower tube here. Now, real quickly, what do we call that lower tube starting here and running down? That is the esophagus. Now, although I'm not going to do it because it's getting a little complicated with everything here, I do just want to remind us the pharynx again becomes important to us. Remember that the pharynx is a tube running from about here all the way to about here. So this tube running here is the pharynx. Remember from the respiratory system, the pharynx is divided into three portions. That is the nasopharynx running here, running from about here to here behind the oral cavity. This is the oropharynx. And then the terminal or last portion here, this is called the laryngopharynx. Okay. Again, I'm not going to write that out. I think you should be familiar with that. But if you're unsure or if you've forgotten, just make sure to go back and make sure you're comfortable with nasopharynx, oropharynx, and then the laryngo. And you see how the laryngopharynx takes us right into the esophagus here. Okay, all. Those are the terms for the digestive system looking at our mid-sagittal model.